With the Game Changers Championships coming to their conclusion, I wanted to showcase a team that unfortunately was knocked out early. Fennel, the Japanese representative to the GSC Championship, wasn't able to win a series, but they did catch my attention with some really creative strats. Fennel won map 2, Icebox, off of some cool plays from Omen, spreading the map with double controller composition. I might do another video on the Omen plays here, but for this video I wanted to focus on Breeze. Fennel ran what almost looks like a standard composition, including the normal Viper, Sova, Jet, and Cypher, but Fennel chose to drop what's usually a flash initiator slot for Neon. This left Fennel with no flashes, so they really needed to make use of the double duelist and Neon wall, and they did so in some pretty unique ways. Let's start with how Fennel took mid control. Fennel used this Viper orb lineup from bottom mid, and it lands at the edge of tunnel. This orb leaves Nest open, and this is going to be the focus of a lot of their defaults. Look at the Cypher trip placement. One is at the exit from A lobby, and the other at the exit of B main. The A side trip completely isolates A lobby, halls pushes, and any pushes through A, while the B trip contains a push through B. With these trips up and tunnel smoked, the only threats to mid control are Nest and double doors. We see the first instance of this mid control default on round 3. Fennel pushes 3 players up bottom mid and 2 up elbow. Fennel drones Suzu up mid. Daiki Sova is playing the common Nest position and hearing the drone counter drones. Len drops the Viper wall for a mid to A split, and then Fennel brings up the poison orb, jumping up into Nest with 2 players still holding double doors. Daiki is aware of this possibility and sets up a crossfire with Bastarda, but Fennel still pushes into Nest with 4 players. Bastarda finds the first kill, but Koharu immediately trades back on Daiki. Koharu cages the cross, and Kurumi darts into spawn, which she's saved for the entire round. This allows Fennel to cross towards bridge and go into the A site. Suzu dashes from bridge to stairs and gets killed by DRN, but gives the info of both Jet and KO towards bridge. Koharu drops from bridge to stairs, while Kurumi breaks the hall strip and opens door. Len has come through double doors after lurking in mid, and immediately trades out Suzu with Kurumi finding a second. Fennel now has full site control, and Kurumi plants for back site while Len and Koharu re-push halls. Fennel still has the Viper wall to cut off any players trying to retake past yellow. Naxi and Nati gets surrounded and easily cleaned up. This mid default inverts the map in a way that's a little bit unconventional, and also in ways that Liquid likely hasn't seen too many times before. Liquid tries to deal with a Nest push with a crossfire and spawn, but still has lost a ton of space and gets overwhelmed by Fennel's numbers. Because of Koharu's trips never get taken out, Fennel maintains full map control over basically the entire map outside of the A and B sites. Not only does Fennel push through Nest to crunch a site, but they also maintain many options of where they could be going. The Viper wall enables a pivot towards double doors. The Viper orb could be dropped for a B split, and unless Liquid is pushing aggressively out of A, there's still the threat of an A lobby or halls lurk. Fennel continued to use this orb in multiple rounds, never getting predictable. In round 7, the same 3-2 mid-elbow split and drone come out from Fennel. This time, Fennel doesn't push through Nest, but instead just holds the door while Festival is able to find an angle on Nati by ladder. Naxi tries to trade and retake the space, but Festival hits a second shot after Koharu baits out a few more shots and then immediately swings bridge and picks DRN. From here, Fennel regroups mid, Len's mid lurk finds Bastarda, and Fennel gets a free plant and round victory. Once again, Fennel is planting for back site. I think this round more than anything showed how uncomfortable Liquid was with this mid default. Nati had no idea that she was going to be exposed from Nest, and Naxi felt pressured to find a kill back, but ended up just taking a dry 1v2. DRN also tries to help from bridge, but Festival's mechanics are just too clean. Moving on to round 9, this is a great example of how Fennel starts conditioning with their default, as they throw the same tunnel orb, but this time use a recon at top mid. However, this time both Viper and Sova immediately pivot to A main and just join the rest of their team for a fast A hit, while Liquid is busy worrying about mid. Fennel did create a window with this pressure, with only 1 player on site, but unfortunately a KO ult is up and shuts down the push, bringing down the Viper wall. Liquid's able to get the round after stalling out the push and taking map control. Regardless, this shows how Liquid has been conditioned to heavily prioritize this mid control fighting against this default, opening gaps elsewhere on the map as a result. Round 10 is yet another example of the mid default, although Koharu is lost early to a peek from Daiki. Fennel isn't discouraged though and still pushes both Neon and Viper up into Nest. Daiki attempts to play an off angle on bridge, but gets found and picked, although Nati has a crossfire established from spawn. Unfortunately, a whiff costs the kill on Festival, and Naxi finds herself stunned and surrounded at yellow.
react on the second kill, but the push is coming in from mid doors too on the attack. So can we hold it down on the A site? Nice relay bolt from Festival. Naxi falls, and this all crumbles for Team Liquid. Diren trying to fight back as much as she can, trying to delay as much as she could as the overdrive comes out from Festival and shocking her opponent. Moving in towards the A site. 10 seconds left on the clock. We have to move quick. It's a 1v1. It's down on the ground, and Bastardo still wants to fight it.
While Bastardo was able to close out the round, once again, the Nest push paid off, allowing a crunch onto A site. Most conventional A splits like to take advantage of pushing down halls or through double doors, but by taking control of Nest, there is no safe anchor position towards bridge and spawn. It's really nice to see some attempted innovation in terms of game plan and a creative default which uses repeated early round utility but still allows for a ton of options. Next, we're going to take a look at two really wild rounds that don't utilize the mid-control default. The first comes in round 4, the first full gun round of the game, so one of the most important rounds. Cypher and Sova are positioned outside of B, while the rest of Fennel books it down tube. Viper Wall is used to cut off mid-door and bridge, and a jet smoke blocks off the tube peak. This wall is sometimes used for splitting the A site, but Fennel has other plans. Festival throws her fast lane into spawn to allow a cross toward arches. Lens stays behind to hold off the A rotators while Suzu and Festival try to crunch the B site. Unfortunately, Naxi is playing at half wall and is able to win both duels. Buhado tries to come out of main with Korumi's drone, but gets shut down and the round is now over. I wanted to look at this strategy because it's wild and creative, but also it didn't work. As the players are going through spawn, a dart hits back sight. In the post-round replay, you can see that Naxi actually dodges the first ping of the dart and then peeks into the second to get the kill on Festival. Now, Fennel should be aware of any gaps in their utility, and it's clear that the location of this dart leaves half wall open. Right before peeking at arches, Festival actually used her slide just to get a little bit of movement. This seems like a mistake to me, and it seems like this slide should be used on this half wall peak, and Jet should be there to trade right after. It's really important for teams to be aware of gaps in their teammates' utility, such as half wall not being revealed, and it really feels like this slide should have just been used to get a better peek against the one risk point of the entire strat instead of just getting a little bit of movement. You could also say that this dart came a little bit earlier than it should have, because at the time it was fired, Festival and Suzu weren't anywhere near able to peek. This moment is the most important part of the strategy, as if Naxi goes down, the rest of Liquid is in no position to fight the crunch. This strategy was so cool, and it's unfortunate that the timing of the duelist swings is just slightly off. I also wanted to show this round because it's actually an idea that could be reused and played with. First off, I don't think you actually need to run a jet to run this strategy. There was a jet smoke used on halls to run up, but a Viper lineup could accomplish the same thing. The jet dash and smoke are used to get out of halls and into spawn, but there's already a neon wall blocking off the angle. Yes, the push would be a little slower, but imagine a Sky or KO flash before the arches swing. You could even run a Yoru with this, causing chaos by TPing onto site during the entry. Alternatively, you could have swapped Jet and Cypher's positions and used the Cypher cages to help with the cross instead of the jet smokes. Then, Jet could dash out of the B main choke point with the drone, allowing real pressure on both sides of the site. This would have been a much more chaotic take to deal with, although the pacing would have to be slowed down quite a bit to allow a double swing at arches. Finally, just for fun, you could actually run this entire strategy with a single harbor. Cascade can be used to scale up all the way to Hall's door, then High Tide can be used to replace the neon wall. You could even have a second Cascade to scale through arches, and this would have your Cove still left over. There's a ton of possibilities, and I hope some teams play with stuff like this in the future. Regardless, Fennel came up with a really cool strategy, and it unfortunately didn't work out due to small timing issues. I think it's fascinating to play with this idea and think of how to change it, but let's move on to the other awesome map inversion that Fennel runs. Team Liquid takes a timeout after round 7, likely to talk about the Fennel mid-control default, having just lost the round to it. Fennel uses this post-timeout round to do another crazy strategy. Liquid instant ults front A with Viper, while knifing bottom mid and darting elbow. Both Bastarda and DRN push down mid, while Cypher cams and pushes B main. Fennel, however, predicted something aggressive and starts with an extremely passive default. After about 30 seconds, they move to a lobby and group as 5 and start walking down halls with a trip and camera behind them to cover their flank. Daiki darts bottom mid and then rotates to bridge to start jump spotting, and Fennel pounces. Fennel bursts out of bridge, dart front sight, and are able to plant for backside. Their Viper wall cuts off a push into bridge as well as through spawn. Kurumi plants for backside yet again, and Fennel has amazing positioning for the post plant. They're able to completely ignore the Viper Pit as Naxi needs to push out of her own ult to fight for Spike. While Koharu gets random spam through smoke, Kurumi's able to trade it back. Liquid tries to push from main and double doors together, but Fennel has a 3-way crossfire and gun advantage and wins it out. Fennel chose a post-timeout round to do something completely different, and it completely messed with Liquid's expectations. Liquid took mid control expecting the mid default, but found absolutely nothing. After Daiki's dart bottom mid spotted nothing, Liquid probably should have known something was up, but Fennel also could have been waiting outside of A main or B main, waiting to pop a site. Liquid was relying on the trip in halls for information, but this also allowed Fennel to press and take so much space as 5 that Liquid was completely unprepared for the pop and desperately trying to fight from bad positions. Again, this is something you could bring with a different comp. There's nothing in this strategy that requires the double duelist, although an operator would easily shut down and walk down halls. Fennel likely knew it was going to be an eco, and they knew Liquid was probably going to fight for mid, so this strat was perfect for playing off the expectations. Even though Fennel lost his map in the series, I love that they're trying to bring creativity to the game plans and trying to catch teams off guard, particularly in a high-stakes championship like this. Fennel's mid-control default and pocket strikes might not be perfect, but they are interesting and a tool that teams could try out for certain situations. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate any and all support I get.